Have you ever wondered what it really means to be alone? In a world where we're constantly connected, yet often feel isolated, what does it mean to choose solitude not as an escape, but as a path to freedom? Delving into the depths of our own personal journey can reveal surprising truths, can't it? Picture yourself now, discovering, much like me, this identification with the solitary, a figure who, far from being a mere shadow in the crowd, becomes a badge of honor. Don't you think there's a certain magic in embracing isolation, turning it into a strength rather than a weakness? Let me tell you a bit about this transition, which might seem familiar to you. From a life filled with interactions and social circles to a more introspective existence, I became a classic example of the lone wolf. But not just any wolf. Imagine a grey wolf, majestic, traversing the snowy expanses of Scandinavia. Isn't that a powerful image? That wolf is me. Choosing solitude over companionship, believing in the freedom that comes with distancing oneself from social games. But here comes the question you might also be asking yourself. On this path of voluntary isolation, have I found true satisfaction? The answer isn't as straightforward as it seems. On one hand, the idea of being a lone wolf has its charm, its aura of mystery and independence. On the other hand, this path is filled with its own challenges, in distinct and unexpected ways. Now I ask you to reflect with me. Have you ever found yourself in the role of the lone wolf? Have you felt that attraction to isolation, to this solo journey that seems so liberating? Perhaps, by hearing my story, you'll find commonalities or, who knows, realize that the desire for solitude has nuances you hadn't considered. What I want to share with you is an honest view of this lifestyle. Yes, there are moments of pure joy and freedom, where we feel masters of our own destiny, without needing to negotiate every step with others. But I can't ignore the loneliness that sometimes creeps in, a constant reminder that we are, after all, social beings. So what do you think about embarking together on this reflection? Let's uncover the layers of this lifestyle, exploring its complexities, challenges, and yes, its rewards. Because ultimately, it's this honesty in looking at our own experience that allows us to grow and perhaps find the perfect balance between solitude and communion. Now I ask you, are you ready for this journey of self-discovery and exploration? Will you, in the end, see yourself as a lone wolf, or discover new ways to connect with the world around you, rediscovering the beauty in human connections? Let's embark on this adventure together, exploring the vast territories of our own essence, and perhaps finding answers we didn't even know we were seeking. Imagine yourself now, not as an observer, but as the hermit himself, living an ancient dream amidst the Chinese mountains, where each dawn is a new canvas painted by the rising sun. In this retreat, far from the hustle and bustle and demands of modern society, you find the purest essence of freedom. One might say there's a unique beauty in living like this, out of reach of social obligations, immersed in an almost tangible peace, don't you think? Living off the land, fishing in the crystal-clear waters of the river, and listening to nature's symphonies. At night, beneath the orchestra of crickets, meditation becomes a meeting with oneself, an inner journey that reveals universal truths. Schopenhauer was spot on in stating that only in solitude can we truly find ourselves free. In this state of being, we are allowed to be who we are, without masks, without the need to justify our choices or our being. But allow me to invite you on a journey of reflection. It's not just about living isolated, but about understanding the depth and consequences of this choice. This lifestyle, though enriching, carries within it a complex tapestry of challenges and rewards. Solitude offers a mirror to our soul, where we are confronted with our innermost selves. Here, away from external expectations, we find space for true personal expression. In this scenario of tranquility, we are reminded that the freedom of choice is, in itself, a luxury. Choosing solitude, opting to distance ourselves from social interactions when we desire, without feeling the pressure to always be available or to constantly be pleasant, is a unique form of freedom. It's a choice that challenges the norm but brings with it unparalleled peace. And you, have you allowed yourself to experience this freedom? Have you considered the power and peace that can come with the conscious choice of solitude? It's a valuable reflection that challenges us to consider not only how we live, but how we choose to live. As we share this moment of reflection, I invite you to look inward and discover what you truly value. The pursuit of solitude may not be a path for everyone, but for those who venture forth, it reveals a universe of possibilities, a space where we can truly breathe, free from the shackles of forced socialization. So, are you ready to explore the limits of your own freedom? To embrace solitude not as a burden, but as an invaluable gift? In this frenetic rhythm of life, where noise and haste seem to engulf every moment, solitude emerges as an oasis of serenity and mental peace. In this refuge of quietude, we discover the opportunity to dive deeply into our reflections, revisit our memories, and perhaps understand ourselves in a way that constant companionship would never allow. Have you noticed how tranquility invites us to contemplate our existence, to relive moments of joy, and to extract wisdom from our adversities? This conducive serenity not only fosters introspection, but also fosters the flourishing of creativity. How many artists, writers, and thinkers have found in solitude the fertile ground for their greatest works? It's as if, away from the tumult, our minds are liberated, allowing ideas and inspirations to flow with an intensity rarely experienced in daily agitation. My own journey in solitude attests to this productivity and growth. The peace found in voluntary isolation, the freedom to explore one's own thoughts without interruptions, the opportunity to fully concentrate on our passions and projects. These are immeasurable benefits. Being independent, not seeking from others the source of our happiness or fulfillment, is to discover true freedom. Who, then, could question the value of this choice? But why do we choose to walk alone? What drives us to face the challenges of solitude, relinquishing the security and comfort of companionship? Perhaps the answer lies in what we seek to distance ourselves from. When Jean-Paul Sartre proclaimed that hell is other people, he wasn't condemning humanity. His famous quote, extracted from a context where the presence of others becomes a source of unbearable anguish, resonates with an uncomfortable truth. Forced coexistence can sometimes feel like an eternal punishment. Sartre envisioned a hell not of flames and physical torment, but of alienation and embarrassment. In this scenario, the presence of others turns us into mere objects of their perceptions and judgments. Far from being free, we find ourselves imprisoned in the images others create of us, alienated from our true selves. This constant perception, the judgmental gaze of others, can indeed be a kind of hell, where the freedom to be authentically ourselves is constantly put to the test. Therefore, I invite you to ponder these questions. In search of our authenticity, does solitude offer us an escape route from this hell? By isolating ourselves, do we find a way back to ourselves, a space where we can freely be who we are, without fear of others' judgment? Solitude, with all its complexities, challenges, and rewards, provides a stage for self-awareness and authenticity. In its company, we have the freedom to create, to reflect, and most importantly, to live on our own terms. Perhaps this is the true freedom we seek, the ability to exist fully, without restrictions, without judgments, true to our essence. So what do you think? Is solitude a refuge, a path to freedom, or both? How can we balance our need for connection with the desire for independence and authenticity? The answers to these questions are as varied as we are, but one thing is certain. In the pursuit of self-knowledge, solitude can be one of the most valuable companions on the journey. As we delve into Sartre's concept of hell, we open the doors to a new perception of solitude, considering it not as a state of lack, but as an invaluable opportunity to achieve genuine authenticity, free from the weight of others' gaze. This idea illuminates the path for those who, for various reasons, choose to withdraw from the turmoil and noise, seeking refuge in the quiet of their own company. And it is in this refuge that we find the space for unprecedented self-discovery and true expression, free from the shackles of external judgments and expectations. The response to the video about solitude and loneliness, especially in the midst of the digital age, where every word and image can be instantly shared, reveals an echo of feelings shared by many. They tell stories of people who, faced with the toxicity and emotional drain that others can bring, choose the serenity of solitude as a healthier and more peaceful alternative. The reports are varied, but the essence remains constant. There's a clear preference for the peace that solitude provides, away from the presence of people who, intentionally or inadvertently, can make us feel isolated even in their company. This longing for authenticity and peace of mind, free from the emotional turbulence imposed by toxic relationships, resonates deeply with many of us. However, while we embrace this solitude, it's important not to lose sight of the potential dangers that excessive seclusion can bring. Avoiding human interaction can shield us from much pain, but it can also deprive us of the joys and growth that come from meaningful relationships. Solitude, although rich in lessons and moments of peace, is not an absolute state to be pursued at all costs. After all, like the lone wolf in nature, there are challenges and adversities that arise when we are completely isolated. In this context, the challenge becomes finding a healthy balance between valuing our own company and being open to meaningful human connections. How can we then tread this fine line, cultivating a space that honors both our need for solitude and the importance of enriching relationships? This balance is the key to a fulfilling life, one that acknowledges the beauty of solitude without neglecting the richness that human connections bring. Thus, this video is not just a reflection on solitude, but also an invitation to introspection on how we can live authentically, balancing our interactions in a way that nourishes our souls without compromising our inner peace. The journey of the lone wolf is admirable, but even it teaches us that life is not just about survival, it's about finding beauty both in solitude and in communion. By recognizing and respecting our own needs for space and quietude, we can also learn to value and seek out those interactions that truly enrich our lives. The symbolism of the lone wolf strikes deep and contrasting chords within us, reflecting the tension between the longing for authenticity and independence and the fear of isolation and disconnection. This archetypal figure, with its aura of strength and courage, inspires those among us who value the freedom to explore the world in our own way, to tread less traveled paths, rejecting the standardization that society often imposes. However, the other side of this coin reveals vulnerability, loneliness, the absence of that human warmth that only a community can provide. Here we find resonance in Schopenhauer's hedgehog's dilemma, which illustrates the complexity of human relationships. The pursuit of closeness and the need for distance, the fear of the pain that intimacy can bring, but also the dread of the emotional coldness that accompanies loneliness. The human journey, intertwined with the need for connection and community, has been fundamental to our evolution. Since time immemorial, we have depended on each other to survive and thrive. The stories we share, the memories we build together, and our impulse for companionship are the foundations of our societies. We are inherently linked to the social structures around us, needing them not only for our material needs, but also for our emotional and psychological well-being. In this context, human connections, friendships, romantic relationships, family ties emerge as central elements of our existence. They fill us in indescribable ways, enriching our lives with their complexity and beauty. But for those among us who self-identify as lone wolves, there is a palpable tension between the desire for autonomy and the gravitational pull towards connection. A paradox that challenges us to reconcile our solitary impulses with the inherent need for bond. Solitude, while it may be a refuge for some, often carries with it the weight of melancholy and longing for something more. It is not uncommon for even the most self-proclaimed solitaries to face moments when the absence of deep and meaningful connections is felt as a gap in their lives. The question then arises, is this feeling an intrinsic call to reassess our isolation, a reminder that, deep down, we long for a connection that transcends mere independence? As we consider wolves, we realize that the nature of these animals is often misunderstood. The idea of the alpha wolf, dominating its pack through strength, has been reassessed by research pointing to a more nuanced family structure, where bonds and mutual care play a central role. Perhaps then, the true strength of the lone wolf does not lie in the ability to stand apart, but in the ability to recognize when to join others, forming bonds based on respect, care, and mutual understanding. So as we ask ourselves whether we are truly lone wolves, perhaps we should also question what we are seeking by distancing ourselves. In our quest for independence, are we inadvertently closing the door to the riches that genuine human connections can bring to our lives? The search for a balance between solitude and companionship may be the true challenge we face, a journey that invites us to explore the depths of our own nature and the possibilities that open up when we learn to value both personal freedom and the warmth of community. The nature of wolves and the dynamics of their packs offer us a fascinating lens through which we can re-examine our own conceptions of solitude and society. Far from the Hollywood cliches of the dominating alpha wolf and the melancholic loner, reality is much more complex and, in a way, more comforting. Wolves mostly live in family structures based on mutual support, led not by tyrants, but by parental figures who guide and protect. The phenomenon of dispersing wolves, who leave their packs not out of a desire for perpetual solitude, but with the aim of forming new connections and expanding their genetic opportunities, reflects an important truth about the nature of social life, whether among wolves or humans. This dispersal is not a rejection of companionship, but a natural step in the pursuit of growth and new relationships. For us, humans who often romanticize the idea of heroic isolation as a symbol of strength or independence, dispersing wolves offer an alternative narrative. They remind us that solitude, while it can be a period of significant introspection and personal growth, is not a final state or an end in itself. Instead, it can be a transition, a moment of preparation for future, more meaningful and satisfying connections. Maybe it's time to question: are we truly seeking solitude as an end, or are we, in our own way, exploring the world in search of our own pack? Like dispersing wolves, are we in a transition period, preparing to form or reunite with a community that resonates more authentically with who we are? This perspective doesn't suggest that we should abandon our appreciation for solitude or deny the importance of being comfortable in our own company. On the contrary, It emphasizes that solitude can be a valuable part of a larger cycle, a moment to better understand ourselves, and, ultimately, to interact with the world in a more conscious and meaningful way. Therefore, if you currently find yourself withdrawn, immersed in a period of solitude, consider this moment not as permanent isolation, but as an opportunity to grow, reflect, and eventually choose with whom you want to share your journey. Ask yourself, am I closed off forever to socializing, or am I open to the possibility of new connections that enrich my life? Solitude can be a powerful teacher, and like dispersing wolves, perhaps we'll discover that our time alone has prepared us to find and cherish communities that truly matter. Thus, the challenge is not only to navigate solitude, but also to be open to the new connections that await us on the horizon, ready to form or find a new pack, one that celebrates our authenticity and accepts us as we are. So ends our journey through solitude and companionship, not as opposites, but as parts of a whole that defines our humanity. May this reflection serve as an invitation for you to explore the vast territories of your own soul. And in doing so, may you find not only peace in solitude, but also the courage to forge true and meaningful connections. Which path will you choose to tread? Continue with us on this adventure, discovering together what it truly means to live free.